We are obsessed with climbing. We spend our lives looking up at the highest peaks of the Himalayas, at the vacuum of space, at the distant stars. We have always pushed ourselves to reach the top, but I have often wondered, what if we turned our gaze downward? What if instead of climbing, we dared to descend? If you were to take a shovel and dig straight down beneath your feet, you would encounter the familiar layers of the earth, the topsoil, the clay, the bedrock. But if you kept digging, if you didn't stop at the mountain's root, and if you didn't stop at the crust, what would you eventually hit? In the late 1960s, a team of Soviet scientists decided to answer that question. They didn't want to go to the moon, they wanted to go to the center of the Earth. They initiated a project that for nearly 2 decades was the deepest hole ever drilled by humanity. They called it the Kola Superdeep Borehole. When I started investigating this project, I expected to find a story of scientific triumph, a race between nations to master the planet. But as I dug into the logs, I found something darker. I found that the further they descended, the less they understood. You see, we have a naive belief about the ground beneath us. We think it's solid, we think it's dead. But as the Soviet drills pushed past 7,000 meters, they hit a reality that shouldn't exist. The rock didn't behave like stone anymore. It began to flow like plastic, it began to scream. And then there were the sounds. We like to think that the Earth is ours to explore. We think that there are no frontiers left, that we've mapped every inch of the surface. But the Kola Superdeep Borehole is the ultimate reminder that we are merely visitors on a planet we haven't even begun to scratch. When I look at the satellite imagery of the Kola Peninsula today, all that remains is a rusted, abandoned steel cap bolted to the ground. It looks like a tombstone. It is the mark of a civilization that tried to knock on the door of the underworld only to realize that the door was never meant to be opened. I am Tan, and this is Y Zone 360. Today we aren't just looking at a hole in the ground, we are looking into the secrets the Earth tried to bury. We often look back at the space race as the ultimate test of human ambition. We remember the roar of the Saturn V, the footprints on the moon, and the satellite beeps of Sputnik. But while the world was looking up, waiting for the next rocket to pierce the heavens, the Soviet Union was quietly turning its gaze in the opposite direction. They weren't interested in the stars. They were interested in the abyss. In the late 1960s, the Kola Superdeep Borehole project wasn't just a scientific expedition, it was a geopolitical statement. To drill 12 kilometers into the Earth, you need more than just a drill. You need a city. The Soviet engineers built an entire complex in the middle of the Kola Peninsula. They designed custom-made drill bits, cooling systems that could pump millions of liters of mud per hour, and sensors that could withstand pressures that would liquefy a modern submarine. They weren't just drilling rock, they were drilling through history. Every layer they passed through was a chapter of the Earth's autobiography. At 7 kilometers down, they found fossils of microscopic plankton that had been dead for 2 billion years, trapped in a world that was supposed to be barren. At 10 kilometers, the rock stopped acting like solid matter. Because of the insane temperature and pressure, it became plastic. It flowed, it refused to stay open. They had reached the physical limit of their materials. But the most baffling part was the lack of consistency. They expected the rock to get harder, more dense. Instead, they found water. Water at 12 kilometers down where the Earth should be dry and hot, they found hydrogen and oxygen trapped in the rock, flowing freely. The entire model of the Earth's crust we had for decades was wrong. They weren't just failing to drill, they were finding things that shouldn't exist, and that I believe is where the legend started to replace the science. I think we have a fundamental misunderstanding of what a solid planet is. We walk on the ground and feel its rigidity because of the immense pressure from the miles of rock sitting above the granite stops being brittle. It doesn't crack anymore, it starts to flow, it becomes plastic. But the flow of rock was only the first barrier. As the Soviet team pushed deeper, the thermal readings on the sensors went off the charts. They expected the rock to get warmer, perhaps 100 degrees Celsius by the time they hit 10 kilometers. But the readings showed 180 degrees. I've looked at these thermal maps and it's like looking into an open oven. At 12 kilometers deep, the heat was so intense, it effectively paralyzed the machine. The drill pipe became as soft as warm copper. The electronics hardened for space travel simply fried. The Soviet engineers were essentially flying a spacecraft into the center of the planet, but instead of the cold vacuum, they were met with a furnace. And then came the most baffling discovery of all, the one that still haunts the scientific papers today: water. I've studied the physics of the deep crust for a long time, and every textbook I own says that at these depths the rock should be bone dry. But as the drill brought up the fragments from 12 kilometers down, the scientists were stunned. The rock was soaked. It was hydrogen and oxygen liberated from the silicate minerals by the immense pressure and heat flowing as a superheated brine. I realized that this wasn't just a failure of a drilling project, it was a breakthrough in our understanding of the planet. We discovered that the Earth is not a dry, dead marble. It is a wet, porous, dynamic sponge saturated with fluids that we didn't know existed. The hole was closed shortly after. The team abandoned the site, leaving behind a 12-kilometer deep scar that would never be replicated. But why did it really stop? We have to confront the legends. In the final days, the drilling was halted because the team claimed they hit an empty space and the sensor, which was lowered down, recorded screams. Have you heard it? If you spend enough time in the dark corners of the internet, you've heard the recording. It's grainy, distorted, and sounds like a choir of thousands screaming from the depths of the earth. It went viral in the late 90s, cited as proof that the Kola Superdeep Borehole had breached the gates of hell. It's a terrifying story. It hits every primal fear we have about the unknown, the afterlife, and the sanctity of the ground we walk on. But is it real? When audio engineers and skeptics analyzed the recording, the screams didn't reveal a supernatural origin. Instead, they revealed a familiar one. The audio had been spliced, looped, and pitch shifted. It contained sounds borrowed from a horror movie soundtrack mixed with the background noise of a crowd, and then distorted to sound like it was coming from deep underground. It was a masterpiece of early digital manipulation. But the most damning piece of evidence, the Kola borehole never used a microphone. Drilling at 12 kilometers deep is an environment of extreme heat and pressure. The drill string is a solid, grinding mass of metal. It is impossible to lower a delicate microphone into such a hostile environment. The microphone story was a fabrication designed to sell a legend. Creating a hell down there makes the abyss meaningful. It gives us a villain to fear, a place to send our nightmares. But the scientific reality that the Earth is just a grinding, flowing, and different machine is perhaps even more terrifying. Because a monster in the dark can be defeated. But an entire planet that is actively changing, breaking and resetting itself, that is a force we are utterly powerless to stop. But the Kola borehole proved that life is more of a weed, a stubborn, indestructible force that doesn't care about our gardens. At a depth of 7 kilometers where the pressure is 4,000 times greater than at sea level, and the temperature is a blistering 180 degrees Celsius, the scientists didn't just find rock, they found DNA. They found microscopic fossils of single-celled organisms, plankton, that had been trapped there for 2 billion years. These weren't just random contaminants from the surface. The geological context was perfect. These organisms had been entombed in the rock since the early Precambrian era. They are the ultimate survivors. I've often wondered if we are looking for life in all the wrong places. We look up at the stars listening for radio signals, while all around us, deep in the crust of our own planet, there is a shadow biosphere, a world of life that exists entirely independent of the surface. If life can exist in the sunless, toxic hell of the Earth's deep crust, then why should we assume that the universe is empty? We have spent decades searching for Earth-like worlds, waiting for a green planet to signal us. But the Kola borehole suggests that life might be the rule, not the exception. The Kola project was labeled a failure by the Soviet state. It didn't reach the mantle, It cost a fortune. It hit temperatures that shattered their machines. But for me, it was the greatest success of the 20th century. It didn't bring us to the mantle, but it brought us to a profound truth. We are living on a planet that is far more alive and far more secretive than our maps could ever show. For billions of years, the sun has been our protector, the architect of our seasons, and the source of every breath we take. But in roughly 5 billion years, the slow burn of our star will hit a violent breaking point. The sun is a nuclear engine balanced by two opposing forces: the inward crushing weight of its own gravity and the outward explosive pressure of nuclear fusion in its core. It's a perfect, delicate equilibrium. But when the hydrogen fuel in the core runs dry, the machine breaks. The core collapses under its own gravity. As it shrinks, the pressure and temperature inside, it spiked to tens of millions of degrees, igniting a shell of hydrogen just outside the core. This isn't just a new reaction, it's an accelerator. The massive energy released from this shell burning pushes the outer layers of the star violently outward. The sun begins to swell. It transforms from a stable yellow dwarf into a monstrous red giant. As the sun swells its surface, temperature drops, shifting its color to a deep, ominous red. But do not be fooled by the cool color. The sheer surface area is so immense that its total energy output increases by thousands of times. If you were standing on the dead, scorched rock of Earth in this era, the sun would not be a disk in the sky anymore. It would be a boiling wall of plasma that covers half your horizon. It consumes mercury. The tiny planet is incinerated in days, dissolving into the star's atmosphere without a trace. Then it claims Venus, our sister planet. The world we once thought might hold life is melted down into the stellar furnace. Then the edge of the red giant reaches us. I find it hard to describe the final moment. There is no impact. There is no explosion. As the Earth enters the outer atmosphere of the sun, the intense plasma will strip away, the crust melt the mantle, and finally vaporize the iron core. The planet that nurtured billions of species, the rock that bore witness to the entirety of human history, will simply dissolve. Our solar system will be unrecognizable. The inner world is gone. The outer gas giants will continue to orbit, a faint, fading ghost of a star in a cold, eternal silence. I've guided you through billions of years of inevitability. We've seen the continents trap us, the oceans evaporate, and the sun consume the very rock we stand upon. If we treat the Earth purely as a collection of atoms orbiting a star, this timeline is absolute. It is the inescapable destiny of planetary physics. But we are not just atoms, and we are not just another species waiting for the climate to dictate our survival. We are humans. We have a compulsive, beautiful habit of looking at the laws of nature and deciding to rewrite them. In the grand, indifferent timeline of the Earth, we arrived only a fraction of a second ago, and yet we have already split the atom, decoded the human genome, and left our footprints on the dust of the moon. The Earth's story may have an expiration date, but ours doesn't have to. When the sun begins to swell, we won't be the same species that fears the dark. We will be the architects of our own fate. We could use advanced orbital megastructures to artificially cool our world. We could nudge our orbit, pushing Earth away from the encroaching flames of a red giant. And if the Earth truly cannot be saved, we will carry its genetic memory across the galaxy. We will seed the stars. We will turn the tragedy of a dying planet into the birth of 1,000 new ones. I realized during this investigation that we are the only part of the Earth that has the ability to carry its history with us. We are the planet's storytellers. The story of the Earth will eventually conclude, but even if it does, that is okay. After all, we are made of stardust. If the Earth is consumed, it is merely returning us to the cosmic forge where we were born. We are not victims of the universe. We are its conscious children. And as long as we hold on to our curiosity, we will never truly fade away. We will be reunited with the stars. The unknown is not a wall, it is a map. And I am honored that you chose to walk this map with me. Stay curious, keep exploring.